Hey y'all, so to round out our unit here as we're talking about our basic shapes, get it, round out, circles, we're going to start talking about circles, and with circles we have to define circumference and area. So basically the overall understanding of a circle is that a circle is all the points that are equidistant from the center. So if I think of this as being my circle here, like I've got a point here, 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 all the way around this circle is made up of points, and they're all kind of like right on top of each other, touching, but it's all the way around. They're all equidistant from this center point here. Now, there's a few things that we want to define as we start talking about circles. The first being the diameter. So the diameter is all the way across through the center of the circle. So I'm going to write diameter there. And then over here, I'm going to define it. So diameter is a segment with endpoints on the circle that goes through the center. So my diameter starts at one end of the circle here, and it extends through the center all the way to the other end over here. So those are my endpoints of the diameter, and it goes through the center there. Now, for our radius here, so this is our radius. Our radius is like half of the diameter, essentially. So let's define that. So radius is a segment from the center of the circle to the edge. All radii, that's the plural of radius, all radii of a circle are congruent. And that is something important to know. All radii within a circle are congruent to each other. Now, I kind of mentioned this as I was talking. You have a diameter that's all the way across a circle, and you have a radius that's half of that. So there's two formulas here. Diameter is going to be 2 times whatever the radius is, R standing for radius and D for diameter. But then I could do the flip side of that and say that my radius is diameter divided by 2. So those are two formulas that we want to know. Diameter is 2 times the radius, and the radius is the diameter divided by 2. Now, let's talk about naming this circle. So if I said that this point here, I'm highlighting the center of the circle, I'm going to call that point A. Oops. If that is point A, so A is the center of this circle, so we call the circle circle A. So how I note that is a little circle with a dot in the center, kind of like a little target, and then the letter A. If that center point was named X, for example, you could call it circle X. So those are some basic key characteristics. Now, one thing that we're going to need to also define before we really get into some formulas here is pi. So up here in this top part, we're going to define what pi is. So pi, or pi, the symbol pi, it's the Greek letter. Some of you already have done this before. You've done Pi Day where you memorize as many digits of pi, but maybe you didn't actually know what pi was. So pi is the ratio of the circumference to the diameter of a circle. So that means that circumference divided by diameter is equal to pi, which is approximately 3.14. Most of the time we use 3.14 for pi. Sometimes we go for exact. A lot of times I actually have you leave it in terms of pi. So that's what pi is. It's the ratio of the circumference to the diameter of a circle. Now, I use that word circumference here. So we are going to, down here on this bottom circle here, I'm going to kind of highlight, actually, I'll highlight it. How about that? So let's highlight this circle here. Let's see if it makes it, yeah, it makes it nice. So circumference is a fancy word for the perimeter of a circle. So the circumference goes all the way around the circle. It's the perimeter of that circle. There's two ways, or there's two formulas that you could use to derive circumference. One is that circumference is diameter times pi. Or if you didn't know the diameter but you knew the radius, remember that your radius is 2 times your diameter. So your circumference could also be 2 times pi times radius. So those are your two equations when we're talking about circumference. You have circumference is equal to diameter times pi, or you could have circumference is 2 times pi times radius. And then finally, everybody's formula. This is one that sometimes students know without ever being taught it, just because it's one of the more popular ones. The area of a circle is the space inside, which makes sense. It's all the space that's contained inside of the circle. The area formula, so let's say I'm going to highlight my circle here, and I'm going to fill it in. My area is this formula. It is pi times radius squared. So that is the formula for area. So make sure you copy down these notes. We are going to use a lot of these terms, so you have to know the terms as well as the definitions of each one. And then we'll use a bunch of the formulas in class as well. So use the template, freehand this into your notes. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button.